My name is Alina. I am 29 years old, and I live in a small apartment on the east side of Los Angeles. From the outside, it looks like a simple life. I wake up every morning, drink coffee from the same white cup, and watch the sunlight come through my window. People around me think I have it all together. I have a steady job at a publishing company, I pay my bills on time, and I even smile when neighbors greet me in the hallway. But inside, my heart is restless. I wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed in love, in dreams, in forever. But life has a way of changing you, of taking the things you believe in and breaking them slowly, piece by piece. It all began 3 years ago when I met Daniel. He was 31, tall, kind, and carried a sense of calm wherever he went. I met him at a bookstore, of all places, when I dropped a novel and he picked it up before I could. He smiled, handed it to me, and said, "This one is worth reading." That small moment turned into hours of conversation, coffee dates, and laughter. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Daniel was different from anyone I had known before. He listened when I spoke, not just with his ears, but with his heart. He remembered the small details, like how I took my tea, or which song made me cry when I was 17. He made the world feel lighter, like all the heavy things I carried didn't matter when he was near. But sometimes, the people we think are meant to heal us are the same people who break us the most. Our love grew quickly, maybe too quickly. Within months, we were inseparable. Friends called us perfect. Strangers smiled when they saw us together. I believed in it more than I believed in anything. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it started to fall apart. At first, it was small arguments, little cracks in the glass. I wanted more time, more commitment, but Daniel was always busy, always distracted. He said he loved me, but his actions sometimes felt distant. I brushed it off. I told myself every relationship has flaws. I told myself love was enough. But love wasn't enough. One evening, I found a message on his phone. It wasn't cruel or obvious, just a conversation with someone else, but it was enough to make my chest tighten. When I asked him, he didn't deny it. He said, "I didn't mean for it to happen." I was confused. His words cut me deeper than silence ever could. I thought I would leave that night, but I didn't. I stayed. I told myself forgiveness was possible, that people make mistakes. I wanted to believe in him, in us, in the dream I had built in my mind. But something inside me cracked that day, something that never healed. Over the next months, I became someone I didn't recognize. I smiled when I felt like crying. I said, "It's okay," when nothing was okay. I stayed even when every part of me wanted to run. Daniel tried, I think. He brought me flowers, cooked dinner, left notes on my desk. He said he wanted to make it right. But love cannot survive on apologies alone. One night, we sat on the balcony of his apartment. The city lights stretched far into the distance, and the air was warm. He looked at me and said, "Alina, I know I hurt you, but please believe me when I say I love you. I will spend the rest of my life proving it." His eyes were full of hope, but mine were full of doubt. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But deep inside, I knew love doesn't grow on broken soil. From that night forward, I lived in two worlds. In one world, I played the part of the loving girlfriend, smiling in photos, holding his hand in public, nodding when people said, "You two are perfect together." In the other world, the private one, I cried into my pillow, wrote pages of thoughts I could never say out loud, and stared at the ceiling asking myself, why am I still here? My best friend, Layla, noticed before anyone else. She said, "Alina, you look tired. Your eyes don't shine the way they used to." I wanted to tell her everything, but I was ashamed. Ashamed that I stayed, ashamed that I couldn't walk away, ashamed that I had built my world around someone who couldn't hold it. Months passed. My laughter became rarer, my smiles shorter. Daniel still tried. He planned trips, bought gifts, spoke of the future. But every word felt heavy, like chains instead of wings. The more he gave, the emptier I felt. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Saturday, and we had planned a quiet dinner at home. Daniel cooked pasta, lit candles, played soft music. He wore the shirt I once said I loved. He looked at me across the table and said, "Alina, will you marry me?" The room fell silent. My heart stopped. I should have been happy. I should have cried tears of joy. But instead, I felt nothing but fear. My hands trembled as I looked at the ring. A thousand thoughts raced through my mind. I wanted to say yes, to make him happy, to make everyone believe in our fairy tale. But inside, my soul whispered, no. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just sat there, staring at him, staring at the life he wanted us to build. And in that silence, he understood. He put the ring back in the box slowly, his face pale, his eyes dim. He didn't shout. He didn't ask why. He just nodded and said, "I see." That night, I cried harder than I ever had before. Not because I had lost him, but because I had lost myself long ago. I realized I had been living for everyone else, for Daniel, for Fred, for the image of a perfect life. But I hadn't been living for me. The days after were quiet. Daniel didn't call, and I didn't reach out. It felt like the end, but also like the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. I walked through the city streets, watched couples laugh, and wondered if I would ever feel that kind of love again. One evening, I sat with Layla at a cafe. She held my hand and said, "Alina, you don't need to explain. I know you're hurting. But remember this, you are not broken because of him. You are broken because you ignored your own voice for too long. Listen to yourself now." Her words stayed with me. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to live a life that doesn't belong to me. I want to start again, even if it means being alone." And for the first time in a long time, I felt a little lighter. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. I closed my journal and stared into the darkness of my room. Outside, the sound of cars drifted through the streets, sometimes a laugh from a stranger passing by. The world kept moving forward, but I felt stuck in the same place, unable to take even a single step. The next morning, I dragged myself to the office, but my mind wasn't there. I sat at my desk with a blank document open on the screen, pretending to work, while my thoughts wandered far away. People walked by, some greeted me with polite smiles, and I forced a weak smile back. On the surface, everything looked normal. Inside, nothing was normal at all. When I came home that evening, the silence of my apartment wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I opened the window and leaned against the frame, watching the street below. People were walking, laughing, holding shopping bags, pushing strollers, living their busy little lives. They looked so alive, so free, while I felt like I was drowning quietly where no one could see. Sometimes I asked myself if I was the one who ruined everything. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe I held on too tightly. Or maybe Daniel was never mine to hold in the first place. Some nights I blamed him. Other nights I blamed myself. But the truth was, blame didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the emptiness that had settled in my chest, refusing to leave. For weeks, Daniel didn't call. I didn't either. The silence between us became normal, like a third presence living in my apartment, sitting across from me when I ate, lying beside me when I tried to sleep. At first, it was unbearable. My ears ached for the sound of his voice. My hand itched to dial his number. But as the days passed, I got used to it. Silence can be cruel, but it can also be addictive. One night, my phone rang. It was Layla. Her voice was soft but firm. "Alina," she said, "don't lock yourself away like this. Go outside. See the world. Don't let this sadness eat you alive." I sighed. "Layla, I don't know how. Everything feels meaningless." She paused for a moment and then said, "Start small. Take a walk. Sit in a cafe. Life outside will remind you that there is still more. Sometimes you need to see it to believe it." The next day, after work, I decided not to go straight home. Instead, I walked to the park near my office. The sun was setting, the air was cool, and the sky was painted with faint shades of pink and gold. Children were running across the grass, couples were sitting on benches, people were jogging with their headphones on. I found an empty bench and sat down, watching everything around me. For the first time in months, I felt like I was part of something, even if only as a quiet observer. As I sat there, an elderly woman came and sat beside me. She was holding an old book in her hands. She looked at me with a kind smile and said, "This park brings peace, doesn't it?" I hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Maybe it does." She opened her book and said, "I come here every day. I read, I breathe, I remind myself that life still has meaning. Even on the hardest days." Her simple words touched me. I didn't know why, but I felt like she had spoken directly to me. Maybe that's what I needed too, to remind myself that life wasn't over, even if love was. In the following days, I tried to change my routine. Instead of rushing home to sit in my silence, I wandered through streets, sat in cafes, or walked along the busy roads. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me that my heart still beat, that I was still here, still alive. But even with these small steps, the emptiness didn't leave. It lingered like a shadow, always a step behind me. One night, when I had finally begun to breathe a little easier, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Just 4 words. "Alina, are you okay?" My hands shook as I read it. 1,000 responses rushed into my head. I wanted to tell him everything. That I wasn't okay, that I still cried, that I still woke up with his name on my lips. But instead, I turned off the phone. Hours later, I turned it back on and typed the safest lie I could manage. "I'm fine." That was all. He never wrote back, and I didn't either. When I told Layla about the message, she sighed. "You need closure, Alina. You can't keep carrying this silence. One way or another, you need to talk to him. Otherwise, these questions will haunt you forever." I whispered, "But I'm afraid." She asked gently, "Afraid of what?" My throat tightened. Afraid of the truth. Afraid that he doesn't love me anymore. Afraid that he does, and I still can't go back. Layla squeezed my hand through the phone line, her voice warm. "The truth won't kill you, Alina. But silence will." That night, I wrote again in my journal. Page after page, spilling out the words I couldn't say to anyone else. "I dreamed we were together again," I wrote. But when I woke up, I was alone. Another page said, "Maybe love doesn't die. Maybe it just changes form." And one night, with my hand trembling, I wrote, "Maybe I need to let go, even if I don't know how." The days blurred together. Some mornings I felt lighter, like maybe healing was possible. Other mornings, I couldn't get out of bed. I kept replaying memories in my head, the way he smiled at me, the way he touched my hair, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. It was like a movie I couldn't turn off, even though the ending always broke me. One Friday evening, as I was walking home, I saw a couple standing at the corner of the street. They were laughing, holding hands, completely lost in each other. For a moment, it felt like someone had punched the air out of me. I turned away quickly, but the image followed me all the way home. I collapsed on my bed, clutching my chest, whispering, "Why not me? Why couldn't it last for me?" I didn't realize I had fallen asleep until I woke up in the middle of the night, my pillow wet with tears. I sat up, turned on the lamp, and stared at my reflection in the mirror across the room. My eyes were red, my face pale. I barely recognized myself anymore. "Who are you?" I whispered to my reflection. "What have you become?" The following weekend, Layla came over. She looked around my apartment, shook her head, and said, "You can't live like this forever, Alina. It's not just about Daniel anymore. It's about you. You've lost yourself." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. She was right. I had let grief become my identity. I had let sadness swallow me whole. That night, after Layla left, I sat by the window and stared at the city lights. People's windows glowed across the street. I wondered if they were happy, if they laughed together, if they shared secrets in whispers. Or were they like me, pretending during the day and crying at night? I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. The next morning, I took a deep breath and picked up my phone. I didn't call Daniel. Instead, I called myself. I opened the voice recorder and started speaking. "This is for me," I said softly. "For the woman I used to be, and for the woman I hope to become. You are not weak. You are not broken. You made mistakes, yes. But you are still here. Still breathing. And that means you can start again." When I finished, I listened to my own voice, trembling but steady. For the first time, I didn't sound like a victim. I sounded like someone who still had a chance. Someone who wanted to live. Stretched differently after that recording. Every morning I played it back, hearing my own voice reminding me that I was still here, still capable of change. It wasn't magic, it didn't erase the pain, but it planted something small inside me. A seed, maybe. A quiet strength I had forgotten I possessed. One morning I woke up early, earlier than usual, and instead of lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I dressed and went outside. The streets were still half asleep, only a few shops opening, a few people hurrying with their coffee cups. The air was cool and the world felt softer at that hour. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts calmer than they had been in months. For once, I wasn't carrying every memory like a heavy bag. For once, I was simply walking. I started writing again, not just in my journal but short pieces, reflection, fragments of stories that had been hiding inside me. Some of them were sad, some hopeful, some full of longing. Writing felt like bleeding onto paper, but in a way that healed instead of hurt. When I read them back, I realized I wasn't just writing about him. I was writing about myself. About the girl who had loved, who had lost, and who was still standing. But of course, healing isn't straight. Some nights were brutal. I would wake up with his name on my lips, or I would dream of him and reach across the bed, only to touch nothing but sheets. There were moments I almost called him, almost begged him to come back, but then I stopped myself. Because deep down I knew, what we had was gone. Not in a cruel way, not in an angry way, but in the way of all things that belong to a certain time and cannot survive beyond it. We passed. The silence between us remained. And slowly, it started to feel less like a wound and more like a scar. Still tender, still visible, but not bleeding anymore. One afternoon, while cleaning my apartment, I found a box of things that belonged to him, photos, little notes, a scarf he had once left behind. My first instinct was to hold them, breathe them in, cling to them. But then I stopped. I sat with that box for hours, staring at it, and finally I decided it was time. I packed it all away, tied the box shut, and carried it down to the basement. I didn't throw it away. Not yet. But I put it out of sight, out of reach. A step forward, even if it was small. Life began to creep back in. Layla noticed it first. "You sound different," she said one evening on the phone. "Like your voice is lighter." I smiled faintly. "Maybe because I'm learning to carry myself again." She laughed softly. "That's the Alina I've been waiting for." One Saturday, I went to the park again. The same bench, the same air filled with laughter and footsteps. I closed my eyes and let the breeze touch my face. And for the first time, I didn't think of him. I thought of me. My own breath, my own skin, my own heart beating steadily. It was strange, almost unfamiliar, but it felt right. And then, as if life wanted to test me, my phone buzzed. His name on the screen. Daniel. My heart skipped. I stared at it, unsure if I should answer. For a long moment, I didn't move. Then, with a deep breath, I pressed accept. His voice came through, familiar, careful. "Alina," he said. Just my name. I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "Hi," I answered quietly. There was silence between us, heavy and fragile, until he finally spoke again. "I just wanted to know, are you okay?" I thought about lying, the way I had before. But I didn't. "I'm not the same," I said slowly. "But I'm learning. I'm breathing. I'm still here." He didn't speak for a while, and then he whispered, "I'm glad." There was more he could have said. More I could have asked. But I didn't. Because I realized I didn't need his words to heal anymore. We said goodbye, gently, almost tenderly, and I knew it was truly the last time. When the call ended, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not joy, not sadness. Just peace. That night, I wrote in my journal again, "Love doesn't always end with forever. Sometimes it ends with silence, sometimes with a goodbye. But endings are not the end of us. We continue. We learn. We rise." And maybe that's what I had been searching for all along. Not him, not even closure from him, but closure within myself. To realize that I am more than what I lost. That I am worthy, even when I am alone. That my story doesn't stop here. So if you're listening to this, if my voice has reached you, maybe you've felt something of what I felt. Maybe you've loved and lost. Maybe you've cried in silence. Maybe you've carried the weight of someone who is no longer here. If you have, then hear me now. You are not alone. The pain feels endless, but it is not. The nights feel impossible, but they pass. And within you, even in your quietest, darkest moment, there is still a heartbeat. That heartbeat is proof. Proof that you are alive, proof that you can heal, proof that your story is not over. Breathe. Write. Walk outside. Listen to the world moving around you. Let yourself feel it all, the sadness, the anger, the love that still lingers. And then, little by little, let yourself begin again. Because if I can rise from the silence, so can you.